Make it 5 straight wins for this Royals team as they'll go for a 4-game sweep of the White Sox tomorrow. We'll give you our thoughts on the game and what's ahead next on Locked On Royals.
You are Locked On Royals, your daily Kansas City Royals podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are tuned in to another edition of Locked On Royals in the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jack Johnson, and you can find me on Twitter or X at JohnnyJ_15. That's at JOHNYJ_15. You also can catch us on wherever you listen to podcasts: Spotify, Apple Podcast, Amazon Music, Google Podcast, Odyssey, and YouTube. Just be sure to hit that follow button and subscribe. For the new listeners out there, here's how this format works. We bring you episodes Monday through Friday, 30 minutes on the dot. Maybe I shouldn't say on the dot. Around 30 minutes every single episode, as well as a 60-second recap after all of the games. Just posted the most recent one before I'm doing this podcast, so you'll usually get that unless we do the episode before the game, and then you can just wait around for that 60-second recap that will pop up on our YouTube channel. So that's the best way to watch it to us. That's the best way to listen to us. And you can always leave questions to my Twitter handle, or you can leave it below on this YouTube video or any future YouTube videos that we will be putting out there. Now, before we get started, I want to let you know that today's show is brought to you by wonderful Pistachios. Get snackin' and get crackin' with the snack that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more today. It is 5 in a row for the Kansas City Royals, as they've already done earlier this season. They've also had a 6-game losing streak. But ever since they left Detroit on Easter Sunday, they have gone on some kind of a tear, winning 14 of 16 games. And this 25-game stretch will end next weekend when they take on the St. Louis Cardinals right here in Kansas City. But they've got a chance to make it a very impressive, if not the most impressive 25-game stretch that we see from this club all season long. And I don't believe that's a bad thing whatsoever. It is incredibly difficult to go 14-2 over a 16-game stretch. I know that's very specific and very exact, but you're not going to find many 14-2 stretches, regardless of who you play, over the course of a 162-game schedule. The best case scenario is that this stretch continues to get better, but there's just more consistency from this group, where there's no more 6-game losing streaks. We're hoping that that is the longest losing streak this team has all season long. And there are reasons to believe that what they are doing, not the 14-2 record, but the way they're playing is very sustainable. And that's why I have it broken down into these specific 3 segments tonight, which if you're listening and not watching on YouTube, we're going to be talking about the bullpen depth, and we're going to be talking about Vinnie Pasquantino's May, which has been a much better version than we saw in April. But the way they're winning these games, I do believe it is sustainable. When you're playing bad baseball teams, they've got the capability of winning 3 of 4 or sweeping them in a 4-game series. Now, the way they played the Rockies, it wasn't pretty at all times, but they swept that series. That's what you need to do against terrible baseball teams. The White Sox are a very bad baseball team. And though these first 3 games, we've seen the offensive struggles come back again, but the pitching has been lights out, right? They had a shutout going into the 9th inning. Carlos Estevez allows 3 straight hits in the 9th inning. They got first and second, down by 1, nobody out. Look, good teams probably break through in a spot like that. But Carlos Estevez has the stuff. He's got the experience to get out of jams like that. And most of the questions I got tonight, and I said on the recap that I'll address it rather quickly, are about the closer's role, right? Lucas Erceg needs to be closing out games for this team. And here's my rebuttal to it. Right, Carlos Estevez has not been as good as Lucas Erceg. In fact, nowhere near as good as Lucas Erceg this year. But to me, the idea of just penciling in Lucas Erceg to the 9th inning, it's not my favorite move. It might be my favorite move if they're in the postseason and it's game 5, elimination mode. You need 3 outs against the middle of the order, well, I might go a second inning of Lucas Erceg if he's already thrown the 8th, if Carlos Estevez is still wobbly. Here's my take, though. He's not going to be that wobbly in October. I still have yet to see the best version of Carlos Estevez when he is consistently pumping upper 90s, when his pitches have even more movement. And truthfully, even though tonight makes you maybe have a pitting feeling about him as a closer, right? Oddly enough, his 2 worst outings this year were against the 2 worst teams in baseball. Colorado was specifically one of those strange outings where he gets 2 outs on 3 or 4 pitches. Then he walks the bases loaded and gives up a bases clearing double to a backup catcher. Odd outing. The Royals fortunately walked off Colorado later on in the game. Tonight, he gives up a ringing double to start the frame. Then Luis Robert. And I understand Luis Robert is going to be a trade chip. And maybe the Royals call the White Sox about Robert. But there are moments like tonight where I go, that's just got to be incredibly frustrating as a White Sox fan. Because his single, which very well could have been a double, and I don't even want to say could have, it should have been a double. Like, that changes the 9th inning. If Luis Robert is running out of the box and he's not waiting to see if it's fair or foul, he's on second base, the single gets him over to third or scores him, and then he's probably going to come around to score on the ground ball. But I will say this, if the exact same result happened, the Royals would have had the infield drawn in, and that hit would have gone up the middle, and now Estevez is really spiraling. So the Royals' defense and the blunders yet again by the White Sox gave Kansas City another win, right? Whereas last night, you've got all the defensive issues for the White Sox, the Mydroth pop-up drop, Michael A. Taylor overthrowing second, the bunt that's not fielded, Maya not making the play at short. Where the Royals tonight, Roberts not running hard out of the box, Waters bails out Estevez by keeping him at first base, then it's first and second. He gets a strikeout. He gets a tremendous play up the middle by Bobby Witt Jr. and Michael Massey, and then he gets a strikeout again. Back to that point, though, and we'll maybe let this bleed into the second segment. Carlos Estevez needs to be this team's closer so you can have that flexibility with Lucas Erceg. The later they get into the season, there are going to be times where the biggest moment in the game, as we saw after the deadline last year, the biggest moment in the game might be in the 6th. It might be in the 7th, and Erceg might work both innings. No, maybe he doesn't have to because the bullpen's got a lot of depth and they've got a lot of live arms right now. But to me, having him move around is increasing his value, is maximizing his value. With Carlos Estevez, even though he did it in Detroit in extra innings, working multiple innings, and the only reason I believe that happened is because he hadn't thrown for damn near a week. Like, he had enough bullets in the chamber to be able to go multiple innings. Erceg's got that ability as well. But for those saying a best pitcher needs to be in the 9th inning, I'm not saying your argument is dumb. And I see a lot of good reasons and pros to making that switch. You still have to get outs in the 7th and the 8th. No, tonight, for example, Lucas Erceg does his job. He strikes out the side in the 8th inning, setting up Carlos Estevez for a clean 9th. And what I would say is, if you go Estevez in the 8th inning, maybe he goes 1, 2, 3. Maybe he strikes out the side. But if he implodes, like he did a little bit through 3 batters tonight in the 9th inning, now you make the situation harder on Lucas Erceg. And I'm one of those people that says the 9th inning is absolutely important, but it's not always won in the 9th inning. It sounds odd because that's when the game is usually decided, but the game itself is not always decided in that moment. And if Estevez is still wobbly, well, maybe you don't trust him in the 8th inning in a 1-run game. Why I like the move of going Erceg and Estevez is it also gives the Royals another inning to add on and cushion more. And the third part to this, or the fourth, whatever number I'm at, whatever bullet point it is, like, the numbers overall have been good for Carlos Estevez. He's got 11 saves in 13 tries, and one of those blown saves is with the stupid ghost runner rule. No, I had a commenter tonight say to my tweet about how just 2 bad outings this year have been against Colorado and Chicago, and they added in Milwaukee as well. But the ghost runner rule, I put an asterisk next to. Like, he gave up an RBI double to the first hitter. It was Jackson Chourio. And then he's got a bases loaded situation, nobody out, and he works out of it. He has had this wizardry, if you will, to work out of jams that he has put himself into. And you do want that from a closer. You would love elite stuff, and you would love stuff that, never has you sweating in the 9th inning. But tonight, he didn't have his best stuff. He still had good enough stuff to get out of it. Like, it's great that the Royals fan base, I should say, I don't believe the Royals are overly concerned with Carlos Estevez, but we are clamoring, or some of you out there are clamoring for a guy with a 2.65 ERA and 11 saves, which is top 3 in the American League, to be demoted from his role. And hey, as I said, the reasons are valid. Like, Lucas Erceg is the best reliever in the bullpen. And if you are one of those fans that says Lucas Erceg, being the best reliever, needs to be the closer, then I'm not going to try to change your mind on that, because that is a logical way of thinking. I also go back to 2014, where, in my opinion, Wade Davis was the best reliever on that team. And he was the best reliever in 2015. Now, in 2015, he was the closer because Greg Holland was hurt. But in 14, Greg Holland was still really, really good, but Wade Davis was the setup. And I understand that Wade Davis throughout 2014 kind of made his name as the setup guy. Like, going into 2014, the Royals had no idea that that's the version he was going to be. But even playoff time, it was HDH. And Davis, in my opinion, was the best. He was better than Holland, even though Holland had 46 saves on the year. But he got the 8th. And the 8th inning is still valuable. The 8th inning is incredibly important. So if you flop them and you switch them there, well, you still need to get those outs in the 8th. And Carlos Estevez has to prove that he can get outs no matter where you put him there. But until it becomes a really serious issue, and this is what I'll end on here, but we'll still be talking about the bullpen. Unless it becomes a severe issue, in the way it has in New York with Devin Williams, having a 9.36 ERA, though he was great tonight working out of a jam against the Padres. Like, Devin Williams' situation got dire, and now the Yankees use Luke Weaver to close out games. If Carlos Estevez blows 3 save opportunities in a row, then yeah, I would say it's time to give Erceg a shot. Or maybe you just let Estevez cool off a little bit, have him get the confidence back up, but he's a confident guy. He's got closing experience. And in my opinion, the best version of this bullpen is Lucas Erceg being the quote-unquote fireman or the setup guy for Carlos Estevez to be the closer. I mean, I don't know for some people if he's got 30, 35 saves by the end of the year and blowing about 5 of them, if you are still nervous when he takes the ball. This year, he's been a little bit shaky. He deals with some base runners out there. His whip is around the league average. You would love for your closer to be as lights out as Lucas Erceg. But I still feel that Erceg's most valuable role is being flexible, of you can use him in the 6th, 7th, or 8th. Tonight, Walker gives you 7 strong, and you're able to turn it over to Erceg and Estevez. They were fortunate to get out of tonight's game. Not sure they're fortunate to get out of that against a good baseball team. But hey, they've won 5 in a row. They'll go for a 4-game sweep tomorrow with Chris Bubich on the bump. All right, we're going to take our first break of the show. When we come back, let's talk more about this bullpen and the depth they now have. We'll dive into that next on Locked On Royals. You are tuned into Locked On Royals and the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jack Johnson, and you can listen to us on wherever you find your podcast. Want to give a shout out to Wonderful Pistachios, also known as the title sponsor of today's show. Looking for a snack that's both delicious and nutritious? Crack into a good source of protein with Wonderful Pistachios. Wonderful Pistachios is one of the highest protein nuts. Each 1-ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, giving you over 10% of your daily value. Plus, they're packed with fiber and better-for-you unsaturated fats to help you keep you feeling fuller longer. So get snackin' and get crackin' with the snack that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more today. And if you're like me, who's constantly on the move, I'll be, flying in and out of a couple different cities at the end of next week. So you need some snacks to tide you over on the flight, or if you have a long road trip, or you just need to get through the workday. I will always urge you guys to buy a pack of Wonderful Pistachios. Try them out. I think they're really good, and I think a lot of you will like them as well. Let's dive more into this bullpen and why, even after tonight, which the Royals gave up 1 run in total, and Carlos Estevez made everybody sweat it out a little bit, they won the game, and that's the most important part. And truthfully, for me, with closers, yeah, I would love to see a Greg Holland type in the ninth. I would love to see a Wade Davis type or a Kelvin Herrera, where you knew those last 3 outs were going to be nothing to them. They're able to lock in, zero in, and burn through. No matter which part of the order they're dealing with, they're burning through all of them. Top of the order doesn't matter. Middle of the order, bottom of the order, 1, 2, 3. You're not even having to worry about it. Sometimes it's going to take a little bit more work. But after tonight's game and going into tomorrow, there's this confidence that I have in the current bullpen, and also some confidence in what this bullpen could be with different guys in it. And with the current group they have, you've got your regulars, and we did get word from Andy Rogers before the game today that Hunter Harvey experienced some soreness after his live bullpen back on Monday. So the Royals are going to slow him down a little bit. Wouldn't be expecting a rehab outing anytime soon. Maybe he can get ramped up. My concern is that Hunter Harvey's track record of being a bit injury prone is that this could just continue to linger over and over again. Don't want to get ahead of myself, but with Harvey's news there, it didn't hit me as hard as maybe the news did way, way back when they began that 10-game road trip and they were about to take on Cleveland. You find out Steven Cruz was getting called up, Hunter Harvey's going to the IL, and you feel like, man, that's your 7th inning guy. You were setting up your HDH type where the 7th is Harvey's, the 8th is Erceg's, and the 9th is Estevez. And now that Harvey has been out for a while and the bullpen has not just leveled the waters, I mean, they've gone above and beyond that. They've been a top 5 bullpen in all of baseball. They are getting strong innings from low leverage guys. They are getting elite innings from Daniel Lynch, from Steven Cruz, from John Schreiber. You're getting elite innings from those guys. You know what you're getting from Erceg. And most of the time, you know what you're getting from Carlos Estevez. I even put it out on Twitter today. They're getting good stuff from Taylor Clark. And when the Royals went after Taylor Clark in the offseason, just a minor league deal back in December, probably a lot of you scoffed at that move. You remember Taylor Clark in 2022 and 2023. And in 2023, he became more of a frustrating guy to watch, where he was getting high leverage spots because the Royals had nobody else to turn to, and he wasn't very good anymore. He was all right for an extended period in 2022, but that felt like ages ago. He's only thrown 3 1/3 innings. They've been a very good 3 1/3. He's retired 10 of the 11 batters that he's faced, or 9 of the 10 batters that he's faced. I've been very impressed. And it's become this theme almost where it's a next man up mentality. And who's going to be the next one to impress us? And bullpen depth is such a driving force for good teams out there. And it's not just about going 1, 2, 3, holding on to a one run lead. It's also the games where you're trailing 4-1 at the end of 5, and you need to keep things close. And you might be throwing out your number 6 and number 7 guy in the bullpen, but they can do their job. Another part to this is you can be a little bit more aggressive at the deadline. The Royals have a good bullpen. At least I can view it that way through 37 games or 38 games. They have a good bullpen. Last year, you couldn't say the same thing. You identified as early as April that if the Royals were going to be in it at the trade deadline, they needed to acquire a bullpen arm or 2. And they got 2. They got Hunter Harvey and they got Lucas Erceg. And those were supposed to be 2 of their highest leverage guys because nobody else was keeping things under control. You always had to pull the fire alarm with the back end of the bullpen. There were spurts where James MacArthur was good and John Schreiber was good late in the game. Will Smith got a little bit better when he had that catastrophic start to the season, but that didn't end well. They were just trying to put a Band-Aid on everything. You were relying on strong starting pitching and the offense to build a big enough cushion where you didn't need to worry about blowing a game late. This team is different. You're relying on strong pitching. You're also relying on good outings from everybody in that bullpen. If Angel Serpa needs to throw in a one-run game, you might need to count on him to get those 3 outs or those 2 outs or just 1 out. And now that they've weeded out some of the guys that were really struggling, minus Chris Stratton, of course, they have found a lot of high-value guys. And they're not all Lucas Ursigs out there. They're still very valuable for this team. And so I circle back to that point about the trade deadline. It's different this year. I don't feel they need to trade for any bullpen arm. I don't feel that they need to go out there and give up a prospect for a left-handed arm. I entertained that idea, but Evan Sisk is in AAA. I feel you can give him a shot. If Noah Cameron comes up and there's not a spot in the rotation, I'm fine with him being another lefty in that bullpen. But you've got arms on arms on arms. And that's a great sign to have in the deadline because you might part ways with 1 or 2 of them where you have an overcrowded bullpen and you can trade with maybe even another contender for somebody that's blocked to help your lineup a little bit and trade a bullpen arm or 2. And you could have somebody fill that role. I promise you that if Taylor Clark goes out there and really looks good in the couple of outings they give him, there will be some trade value there for a team that's hurting. Boston is just bleeding with their relief corps right now. They are just bloody. They can't close out any game unless Aroldis Chapman's on the mound. He threw 104 tonight. You can't throw Aroldis Chapman every single time out. You need those guys that can bridge the gap. Maybe Taylor Clark could be that answer. Boston's still a contender. No, Jonathan Bolin is an older prospect, but a big body, big frame, 97 and 98 sinker ball. Like, that to me has value. Maybe if you don't want Evan Sisk to be that guy and Noah Cameron can be, you could get some value there with Evan Sisk. Somebody looking for a lefty specialist. You can't have 12 guys in the bullpen. You're going to have to part ways with a few of them, and they can be trade chips. So that's why bullpen depth is so important. It's not just about can everybody get 3 outs. You have confidence in that part of them right now. It's about what you do when you're not leading. Can you keep the team close? Can you give the offense a chance? If somebody goes down, can somebody from AAA give you some relief? That's happened for the Royals. Steven Cruz has been good. Jonathan Bolin was good in his 2 innings. Taylor Clark has been good. Evan Sisk was pretty good. That's 4 guys right there that you weren't counting on to begin the year. And they've been good. Right? If Alec Marsh can ever get healthy, that's another name out there. You know, there are going to be opportunities for the guys down in AAA to give this team an impact, to give this team a bit of a spark. And they can either help this current roster, they can help next year's roster, they can be a trade chip, and they can just be the guys on the back burner. Hey, when we need you, you got to be ready to go. And that bullpen depth, to me, is so important and a major key for a team trying to get back to the postseason and get much deeper than they did in 2024. Okay, we're going to take our final break of the show. When we come back, Vinnie Pasquantino is now hot all of a sudden. We'll talk about his May breakout next on Locked On Royals. You are tuned into Locked On Royals and the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jack Johnson, and you can find me on Twitter or X at JohnnyJ_15. Our last sponsor we want to let you know about is Supply House. Get the supplies you need from the site made for the skilled trades, Supply House. Whether you're in plumbing, HVAC, or electrical work, Supply House is the reliable way to order products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Plus, with a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from 400-plus top brands, you'll find exactly what you need, delivered fast from coast to coast. Need help with an order? Supply House offers expert support and industry-leading service, so you'll always talk to a real person. And for trade pros looking for an extra edge, Their free Trade Master program offers exclusive perks like a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Thousands of skilled professionals are already taking advantage. Now it's your turn. Join the Trade Master program today at supplyhouse.com/TM and start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Plus, use promo code SH5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. The Royals will go for a 4-game sweep tomorrow with Chris Bubich on the bump. And I will say that the guy going for the White Sox, as if their rotation hasn't been good enough in this series, and that's where I will tip my cap. I thought Shane Smith was phenomenal at the game I was in attendance for on Monday. I will say that, who was it? Sean Burke on Tuesday night. He was equally as good. He was able to go 6 1/3 in that game. He only struck out 2, but kept the White Sox in it. They had a lead, so even more than just in it. And then tonight, Jonathan Cannon, another quality start, gave up only 2 runs in 6 innings. Tomorrow, I'm a huge, huge fan of Davis Martin. Not rooting for the White Sox to beat the Royals, but as a pitcher, I love Davis Martin's stuff. The strikeout totals are not there, but man, he's got some wicked, wicked stuff in his arsenal. Has like a 92-mile-an-hour changeup that moves. The Royals will have their hands full, and the White Sox starters have given them fits in these first 3 games. Fortunately for the Royals, their rotation has just been better, and their bullpen's been better, and their defense has been better. Every part of their game has been better, and that's what good teams do to bad teams. And the Royals are now 22-16, winners of 14 of 16, and they've won 5 in a row. The White Sox are 10-27, and they can't score. They have a worse offense than the Royals, and I know it's not saying much, but they are an offense that's pretty easy to keep down. But tomorrow, the Royals will have Chris Bubich on the bump, and maybe this can be one of those games that they can give a ton of run support to a guy that absolutely deserves it. Chris Bubich with a 1.98 ERA. He was very impressive to me last Saturday against Baltimore, where you have the rain delay, you start the game, you get through an inning, then they put you on hold, you have to stay warm, and he goes out there and throws 4 more scoreless innings. And the Royals offense did not give him much. They gave him 1 inning until the bullpen took over, and then they were able to get a home run from Cavan Biggio and Isbell and Vinnie Pasquantino. And speaking of Vinnie Pasquantino, man, have we been waiting to talk about some sort of breakout with him. And I do feel that we're starting to see maybe the beginning of it. It's now getting to a big enough sample size where you can say, all right, that's about 30 to 35 at-bats where he's looked better, he's hitting the ball harder, he's hitting to all fields. And if I were to tell you that in his last 7 games, Vinnie Pasquantino is hitting .333 with a .600 slug, you may believe it, you may not believe it, but he's been very impressive. And tonight, scalded 2 more balls, and he seems to be rolling a little bit. And he was having some of these games about 3 or 4 weeks ago where he'd hit the ball really hard, he might homer, you felt that he had 3 or 4 really good ABs, and in the next game, he was completely missing. He gave you absolutely nothing. But ever since it was, for me, that series finale in Tampa, that's when I noticed the change with Vinnie Pasquantino. And if you don't believe me, that was May 1st. And he's 10 for 30 in May. He was 2 for 6 in that game against Tampa. He had 2 opposite field doubles. He was 0 for 4 on that Friday night game against Baltimore. And he's had only 1 more 0 for game in this stretch in May, the first week of this month. He was 1 for 4 against Baltimore on May 3rd, but he also had a home run in that game. He was 3 for 5 on the home run derby game on Sunday, and he had another home run there. He was 0 for in the first game against the White Sox, but then he was 2 for 3 on Tuesday night, and he was 2 for 4 tonight. So his average since April 30th has gone from 177 to 210. I will say that I need to see more plate discipline. I need to see more walks to truly believe that Vinny is back to being Vinnie Pasquantino. I mean, he has 1 walk in the month of May, and he's got 1 walk since April 25th. That's not good enough for me because you're not going to see the on-base numbers skyrocket in the way that your batting average has, because we also know that, when your bat's hot, you're going to feel like you can hit everything. When you're really dialed in, when you're really locked in, and the way Maikel Garcia has been, who also added another multi-hit game, and the Royals are still undefeated when he's had a multi-hit game, like he's walking too. And for pitchers, it's incredibly hard to get somebody out that not only is swinging a hot stick, but they're seeing a lot of pitches, and they're also not afraid to take the walk. But it is clear that in the month of May, you are seeing the timing get back to normal a little bit. You are seeing the hard line drives, the left center. You are seeing him pull the ball down the right field line. He's getting the ball in the air, but also hitting it with authority. It appears to be the signs of a breakout. I saw the same thing from Salvador Perez before his little breakout. Then he had the hip soreness he was dealing with, appears to still be dealing with it because he hasn't caught since having that brought to the public. But to have Salvador Perez and Vinnie Pasquantino and Bobby Witt Jr. and Maikel Garcia and Jonathan India start to catch fire a little bit, it's a great thing to see. And I'll throw this in before we wrap up tonight's show. Kyle Isbell's now hitting .250. And in his last 15 games, he's hitting .306. And he's slugging .472. He's slugging .647 over his last 7 games. That's what you're getting from your 9-hole hitter. You're getting a little bit from Luke Maile, who's OPSing north of 1,200. Michael Massey, he's somebody, too, that you do want to see get going. I'm fully aware of the struggles that he's endured. But even this is an encouraging sign. Everything about this slash line's not great. But for someone that was hitting $150, $160, he's hitting .240 over his last 7 games. So even though the offense hasn't really broken out in this series, they're 3-0. And we'll go for that 4-game sweep tomorrow. Chris Bubich will duel off with Davis Martin, and that first pitch will be at 1:10. And in tomorrow's episode, after we recap, we'll probably get that to you guys by 5 o'clock, 5:30. We will break down that game. We will preview the upcoming series against the Boston Red Sox, and then we'll also lead you into Mailbag Friday for that coming Friday. But that's going to do it for us. Another edition of Locked On Royals on the Locked On Podcast Network. I've been your host, Jack Johnson. Thank you for making Locked On Royals your first listen today. For your second, check out the all-new Locked On MLB Game Night. Every game, every night, all season long. Get local analysis on a national scale and find MLB Game Night on Locked On MLB on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. Tomorrow, we'll bring you a recap of this 4-game series in Chicago, and as I said, preview the upcoming series against the Boston Red Sox. But until then, you take it easy, Kansas City.